Okay. Let me. Can I still be heard?
Yes, very much.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So today we want to talk about front end versus back end development, understanding the two sides, and especially if you are starting out, it is important that you know what both of them entails so that you'll be able to make a decision on which one is of interest to you or which one do you want to go to. So we'll start with introduction. First of all, a website. I know that if you're already in your web development class, you already know that a website is made up of. Oh, sorry about the noise. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to make him quiet. So we already know that a website is made up of two major parts: the front end and the back end. So the front end are what the user sees, like the button, the color, the landing page, everything, like anything that you can see is the front end part of the website. And then we also have the back end, which is like the behind the scenes. Those parts let me say the logical part of it, those parts that you cannot see. But then the front end cannot work without the back end because you can design a button, but if the back end engineer does not work on that button to be clickable to do a functionality, that button will just be an empty button in the screen without any use, without any, maybe just for beauty purpose. So to get a fully functional application, not just website application generally, you need a back end and a front end to be able, so I can interact users will be able to interact properly with your application. So I've already explained this. A front end is like the server side of the development, the client side. These are the parts that is being rendered on the browser, and these are the part that the users see. So one thing is, if you are trying to focus as a front end engineer or front end developer, you should try and always think like the user anytime you want to create something. When you want to build a website, the questions you should be asking yourself is, if I am the one using this website, how easy will it be for me to navigate the different parts of the website? Or you ask yourself, can a dummy without any manual be able to easily follow through this my application without getting confused? These are some of the qualities that, although some people could argue that okay, you can leave that for the UI UX, that's a user experience, uh, um, UI, that's user interface, user experience engineers. But then, with the way the world is revolving, with the way AI is coming up, a lot of companies expect you to be able to stand in both shoes. Um, they will argue that there's AI to assist you. So, as a front-end engineer, even most companies, I don't think they even have a dedicated UI US engineer dedicated to anything. It's usually people overdoing, like front-end engineers stepping into the roles and the shoes of the user interface guys, if you get what I mean. Am I still being heard? Because I'm not seeing you guys, so I'm just looking at my screen.
You are loud and clear.
Okay. Then the next part is, what are the technologies that the front end use? HTML, which is like the basic. It gives you the structure. HTML, that is hypertext markup language. So this gives you the structure. But then if you just write HTML script, your website will just be like a web page with just text, no design, no interactivity. And this is where CSS comes in. CSS beautifies that website, make it add colors, add shapes, circle. There is the beauty of the website is CSS job, and then the interactivity. When I click a button, I want it to have like a hover sign around it. When I'm trying to move, I want to have some like really nice animations around my pictures, my buttons, and the rest. This is what JavaScript does. And then, because sometimes when you want to do something, writing this HTML, CSS, raw HTML or raw CSS or raw JavaScript can be really, really stressful. You could spend like hours trying to design a button, because it's more like try and error, try and error. You don't just have it, you don't have the whole code in your head. So some people came up and started making the work easier, and they came up with what we call frameworks. So we have like a lot of frameworks for front-end engineers. We have React, we have Vue, we have Angular. They are all frameworks. Usually they are built like how will I put it? They are built on top, like on top JavaScript, or I think JavaScript or CSS, right? So, and also we have tools that is being used by front-end engineers. We have the Webpack, we have the Vibe, we have the Tailwheel, we have SaaS, we have a lot of it, a lot. So these are just like a summary of it. And then it comes down to responsibility. As a front-end engineer, what is your responsibility? As I mentioned before, building responsive layout. It's one thing to have a nice design. It's another thing for your design to align with different devices and different screen sizes. Because if you don't design your site to be responsive, maybe when I look at it in a laptop, that it will be very nice. So what happens when I look at it in a very big monitor, or when I start looking at it with my phone? A good engineer will always make their websites be able to adapt to any screen size. This is where responsiveness comes into play. And then ensuring accessibility. I mentioned something like that. If I just come into your website, will I be able to understand not just your, so I'm just using website, I'm just generalizing it to website, but it could be anything, it could be Android application, it could be desktop application, right? But if I jump into your application and I don't have any manual, will I be able to navigate easily and be able to do things around your application without getting confused? Let me use one of the best applications, especially back apps that I really like in Nigeria, is the OPay, because OPay think like a user. If you go into an OPay app, you see that they have like some predefined amounts, predefined functionalities that are readily available for you. Why? Because they are trying to see what is this thing that users use very well, that will make our user happy. And my company, for example, where I work, our Android application, they pay a lot of money towards trying to understand the user's behavior. So we do market research, we develop different versions of the app and send it to the market so that the users can look at it, and then we have like metrics that we are using to monitor what they are doing. So based on what users are clicking, based on what they are doing, we were able to make that decision. Okay, if we make this app this way, it will be nice. And trust me, the time they are spent in market research, the time they spent in this sampling applications, they are not small money, but they are investing in it to tell you how important it is to satisfy your users. Because if your users are not satisfied, they will not use your application, they will not use your product. Then optimization, performance, very, very important. I don't want to log into a site or an application and I have to wait 2 minutes for my page to load. I'll just forget about that site, especially in this generation where the attention span of people is very, very low. So you want to develop a site, something that is performant, something that is optimized, so that 3 seconds I've seen what I want, 1 second your site should have loaded, everything going well. But if you are building and you're just building without thinking about performance, trust me, it's not that when you are starting out, you should be focused on performance. Most people, what they do is when they are finished creating like an MVP or like a sample of what they want, then they go back and start changing this and making it performance. So don't be in that loop where you're trying to make your application fast and you end up doing nothing, if you get what I mean. User yes.
Sorry for interrupting you. I think your screen is not showing what it is meant to show. It has been showing
What
the
is it
stand
showing?
up.
Are you
Stand up.
serious? Are you
So,
serious?
yeah, we tried to
So the one
communicate
I've
to
been
you.
presenting. Whoa. Well,
We tried to
sorry about that.
communicate. We didn't want to interrupt you because the message was flowing very well.
Oh, this is crazy.
No problem, no problem. I believe we all understood so far, but just try to.
Oh, sorry about that.
No problem, no problem at all. No problem at all.
Is it visible now?
Yes, yes, perfect, perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
You can
So
continue.
okay, thank you so much. So back to what I was saying. Handling users' input also is the work of the front-end engineer. You accept that input and then you forward it through an API to the as to the and make like requests that have been made by the backend engineers, and then communicating with backend APIs also is your responsibility. And the backend work on their own part of things, expose API that you'll be able to use. We'll come back to that later. So who is a backend engineer? This is my specialization. So in case I start blabbing a lot, it's not my fault. This is what I've been doing for the past 8 years. So a backend engineer is focused on the logical side of the application, the parts that we cannot see, but we can feel it, because when you click on a button, as I mentioned earlier, and the button is loading, that is the work of the backend engineer to, like, the button sends response and all that, and the user is registered, the landing page is loading data and everything. Those data that you are getting is being worked on by at the backend side of things. So we handle business logic, data storage, authentication, APIs, server configuration. So I'll take this bit by bit. Business logic. Nobody just comes up to start developing application without having a business in mind, right? Unless you are just practicing or you are just trying to develop your skill. But every business has like their domain. They have the part of it that is important that they want to reflect in the application, right? So it is the work of this backend engineer to understand that business, to understand what the business wants to do, and then being able to develop the application aligning with that business. And then when you finish doing that, you expose your APIs if it needs to be. What is API? Application programming interface. So it's like API could be, you could call the REST APIs, like the ones that you are very familiar with, HTTP, making HTTP calls to REST API. Some use JSON. There is this one that they call gRPC, that's remote protocol call. So it's not just one. And now recently in this world, the world has advanced, that is no longer fraud application. People are no longer writing, okay, I submit request and I save to database. Software development has gone, because now you are serving, before you used to serve like 10 users, fine, 10 users, 15 users. But when you are dealing with millions of customers, right? You as a backend engineer, it goes beyond that. You have to start thinking about optimization, just like the front end. You have to start thinking about load. How will I make my server carry this load request? You start thinking about architecture, software patterns, system design, system architecture, best practices, a lot of it, a lot. Then we have like architectures, we have like microservices. Oh my God, I'm babbling, sorry. So it starts it. Data storage also. When users give you data, it's expected to store it properly, and this is also the work of the backend. Although as a front-end engineer, also you're expected to have like some knowledge about it. Authentication, very important. Not just authentication and authorization. Fine, there are some parts of the applications that can be visible to everybody. That's the home page, your landing page, but there are still the parts that you don't want anybody to access. You want to give it to specific users, so that's where the username password comes in. And even if I log into the username password gives you the authentication. Now, even if I log into the application, right? Um, there are some parts that we call admin panel, user panel. Yes, I am a user. I can access your application. Authorization comes on who have access to things. Even if you can log, what are the things I can access? Can I access admin panel as a user? No. So this is where authorization comes into play. And then your server configuration. Even now, there is like a little there's a thin line between back-end engineers and DevOps now, because for example, where I work, we are expected to do the DevOps part of things. So we deploy the application, which in some organizations, it will be work of like a specific DevOps team. But in our own cases, that's not the case. You deploy the application, you monitor it, you make sure that everything is going well. You even set up your CI/CD pipeline, that is continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. You do everything end to end as a backend engineer. So you don't just limit yourself that my work is just to write the logic and send. No, you make sure that application is running. And what are the technologies? There are a lot of it. There's Node, there's Python, there's Java, PHP, Go. For me, I'm using C#. I'm focused on C#. And frameworks also, there's Express, the Django, Spring. We in the .NET world, we in the C# or C# world, we make use of the .NET framework. Then databases, you have to have knowledge of it. SQL, there's document databases and non-document database. Document database, so some people call it SQL database and non-SQL. So SQL databases are like SQL, they're not SQL. You have things like MongoDB and the rest. Postgres is a SQL database. Cassandra, non-SQL database, and a lot of it out there. Then the tools that you use as a backend engineer is a lot. Like, it just depends on your role. This Docker is used for containerization. Redis, Nginx, Kubernetes, like, it's just a lot. It's just a lot. So these are like the summary of it. Then what is your responsibility? I've mentioned a lot of it already. Managing the data. Make sure your data is safe. Saving data is one. Making sure that data has integrity is another one, because you could save a data that is corrupt. So you have to make sure that the data you are saving is up to date. When you are dealing with an application that is serving millions of users, you won't just have one instance of your application running. You can have like 10, 15 instances of it running, right? And in that time that a lot of applications are running, different requests can come in concurrently. So if you don't manage that race condition, you end up having like data that is corrupt. That's like, as a backend engineer, you have to ensure that any data you are getting is like, it's proper, it's the right data. Manage race conditions, manage user imputing the wrong the wrong thing. Because even as a front-end engineer, you should also be careful of that. If you're exposing a form, you should check for things like SQL injection, so that someone will not come and hack your site and pretend that they're trying to input their username and password. Security, very, very important. You have to be like at the top of it when it comes to security, because they will hack your sites, they will hack your application. And sometimes when they hack into this application, it can run down a company. You get law cases. If you check online, you see like a lot of all these big firms. Sometimes they are being sued because users' data were exposed, users' data were breached. So this is actually a big deal. You have to be very, very careful if you are dealing with user information. Handling requests and responses, integrating with third party, yeah. Especially when it comes, especially payments, you, one way or the other, as a back engineer, you must always integrate with third parties, be it payments, SMS, anything depending on the business need. They're ensuring liability and uptime. Like I mentioned this earlier, I don't want to come to your site and your site is down. I come today, your site is down. I come tomorrow, your site is down. Why will I want to come back again? I'm just thinking that these people are not serious. So as a back engineer, one of your top priorities also is to make sure that your application is always available. Like, it's it's really, really important. Even if you're having a downtime, let it be as minimum as possible, as short as possible to fix the issue. Imagine you come online, you want to buy something, and Jumia server is down, and you wait the whole day. Jumia server is still down. What will you take Jumia as? These people are not ready for business. So now, I've been talking about each brand separately. So how do they come together now? They communicate via APIs, like I mentioned before, the application programming interface. It could be REST APIs, it could be remote protocol calls, it could be event streaming, different ways of application communicating. Then common format is JSON. And XML2 is also very common, but JSON, I think most of the REST protocols, REST makes use of JSON. And why JSON is like the common format is because even if I'm coding in Python, I'm writing my front end in which language will I use? In Node, and you are coding your back end in Python. Another person is writing another part of the application in C#. JSON makes like a common interface where we'll all be able to communicate irrespective of the fact that we are writing different languages, right? So what you need to do is to convert your request to a JSON, and then I'll convert my own response to a JSON format. I'll be able to communicate easily. So it's like a standard format for communications. So protocols, we have the HTTP or HTTPS. HTTPS is like the secured HTTP protocol. So like I said, when you want to access a website that doesn't have HTTPS, you see that your browser will be warning you that this site is not secure. So you should be careful of that. The API styles, like I already mentioned, we have REST versus GraphQL. I will not go into the details, you can look them up because of time. Then let's move, for example, how this flows. So I go into your application and I'm doing given a form. I put in my username and password. The form and the button is provided by the front end. And after I finish putting in my username and password, what happens? The front end send a post request to the login API. This is that post request that is being sent to the login API, is the work of the backend engineer. And then what does the backend do? It validates the credentials, it checks the database that this user is existing. If it's a new user, register the user. Then if there's an error, the backend sends back the error as a response to the front end. If there's no error, the request go through. So you could see how we need each other. Like nobody's an island. The back end needs the front end, and the front end needs the back end. Although there's this like gap in between where we have the full stack. What does full stack mean? Full stack is someone that does both the back end and does both the front end. So it's like the midpoint of everything. And if you're a full stack engineer, it's usually in high demand because companies can easily live with this. Now, don't get me wrong, even as a back end engineer, there are times where we have to write some small front end code because we want to expose a user interface and we don't have like a dedicated front end engineer. Also, as a front end engineer, there are times where you have to write this authentication, login, and the rest by yourself because there's no dedicated back end engineer. So somehow, even if you are front end centric or back end centric, you will still have to do both in your career as you grow, because there are times where you cannot just avoid it. Although me, I try to avoid front end tasks as much as possible because trust me, what made me go into back is when I was starting out I actually started with HTML, which is like the basic, like as a software engineer, and you don't know HTML, you are not serious because HTML is like that stepping stone into the front end world. Like, is that software world? Is that maybe someone holding you baby steps and the rest, right? So I was doing that. I did CSS, JavaScript, and why I went full into back end was because I realized that this is not my thing. I find it very difficult to come up with designs, and then my designs are usually very rubbish. sometimes my team lead, when they see my design, I'll be like, oh God, Gloria has done this again. So it was, I know I wasn't good in that part. And I really enjoyed the back end. I enjoy writing code. I enjoy not having to think about how should I move the button? How should the button look like? So I'm just focused on, okay, this is what I am expected to do. And then that was how I that was one major decision that like took me over to the back end world. So if you are starting out, one way to make a good decision is what do you like? If you really enjoy writing, like you enjoy design, you can you some people are really creative, trust me. You can just close your eye and you can picture the colors that you mix and everything will be perfect. That will make you a really great front-end engineer. But if you are the type that you can mix like 20 colors in one page, please avoid front end and you enjoy logic. Just go towards the back end side of things because that's where your strength lies in. Yeah. So career paths, like I've been saying since, you have the back end, the front end, and then you have the full stack. The full stack is like that person that just like the person knows the back end, knows the front end, and then but one thing I've noticed in this career journey is that even those that are claiming full stack, they are usually tilted into one part of it. They may be full stack, but if you ask them what they really enjoy, what they are most centralized in, you see that they are tilting maybe towards the front end or the back end. So being a front end or a back end does not really stop you from knowing it all. Trust me, the more you know it, or the more opportunity. So we have the DevOps and site reliability engineer. These are just related parts to these ones are in charge of infrastructure, making sure that deployment is working as expected, making sure there's no downtime. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes there's even a tilting of the back end engineer into this DevOps part. In some organizations that have no dedicated DevOps team, you find back end engineers also doing that work for them. And then you have the UI UX designer. It's also related. So also in organizations where they don't have like a dedicated UI UX designer, you also see the front end engineer tilting towards that end angle, right? So it's like a loop. No man is an island. We all need each other, just like the way the front end needs the back end, the back end needs the front end, and the front end needs the UI designer. So it's not when you're working that you can't sit in one island and just be writing your own code. No. You have to understand, even you as a back end engineer, you have to understand what the user needs. And so that you'll be able to communicate properly. And when you are designing your application, you'll be able to also be thinking about user needs. And then the front-end engineer is also trying to understand what the user needs. So at the end of the day, every application is user-centric because the business you are doing is user-centric. Your users are the people why you are there. Without your users, without your customers, the application is useless, right? So it doesn't make anybody an island. Since the front end is user-centric, the back end is user-centric, we all come together at the end of the day to work together. But then before you divert into any part, know your strengths and your weaknesses. If you don't enjoy logical side of things, you enjoy design, you enjoy bringing things to play, you enjoy seeing the life in things, then the front end is the part for you. But if you are the one that enjoys the logic, you enjoy listening to business, you enjoy the architecture, you enjoy designing softwares and the architecture, you just enjoy that part, then you can stick to the back end. Then if you are the type that I don't want to write code kind of person, but I want to be there, I want to contribute, I want to like make this design so that it will be, trust me, these UI UX guys, they are really useful, very, very useful. Because even with the existence of the front end, there is a limit to what they know compared to someone that is like really specialized in it. And then if you feel that you want to go to the infrastructure side of things, you want deployment, you want to handle how the server is running, you want to be the one in charge to make sure that there's no downtime, there's no for the users, then you can also go to DevOps, right? So this is like a comparison table. Focus, where you focus on the languages and the rest. So if you want front end, UI UX, back end data, language, you can see there, the tools, the strengths, right? I've I've already talked about this: visual creativity, front end; problem solving, back end; challenges is obviously every part has its own. Your browser, you should be able to handle that. Okay, your app is supported across different browsers. Back end, your app should be scalable. So if, for example, when you started out your business, you had only 10 customers, and all of a sudden your business increased and you start having like 20 million customers. How will you manage? It just takes me back to the days of Poison Scheme. There's some sites that will come up, and when people are registering, the site is working well. And then when I go to tell my friend that this side they pay, this side they pay, this side they pay, all of a sudden there's like a flushing of customers into that site. You start hearing that we are working on our application. This is just a typical example. Those Poison Scheme sites, the people worked on them without thinking about scalability in mind. And that's why when you have like influx of users into the application, it crashes, right? So which one should you learn first? Front end is visual. If you are stepping in, if you are trying to test the waters, it's really good to start with HTML and CSS because it makes you to start appreciating what you are doing. It gives you the ginger and the morale that you need, right? But and then after you do that a bit and you say that you're not enjoying it, then you can move over to the back end and start learning the logic. And if you want flexibility, full stack, at the end of the day, it comes to your interest and what you enjoy doing. Thank you very much.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay, continue. So, okay,
No,
are you
no, no,
done?
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay, wonderful. I believe we all learned a lot. Me
Thank
is
you.
managing my small web expertise. I've learned a lot from this. I've learned a lot. So you could see, I believe she touched everything. Um, questions, questions will come later on. Questions will come later on. But for anybody who has questions, I've noted down the ones dropped so far. For any of you that has a question or questions rather, more than one, you could drop it in the chat comment section. There will be a stipulated time whereby you answer questions. The experts will answer questions dedicated to them. Yes. This is wonderful. This is wonderful. You could see she's a very professional backend engineer, but the way she was speaking is as if she's a full stack because she also highlighted some things you need for the front end bits and what made her transition into backend. She showed you her weakness and her strengths, and she actually kind of like put it on her own perspective. She's not advising you to choose one, she's just advising you choose which is best fit for you, just like how she selected hers. Um, I really learned a lot. I really digested a lot from this webinar. But the funny thing is that there's still another speaker that will add some spice to the conversation. I will let him. I'll pass the mic over to him, Mr. David Sampson. Mr. David Sampson is a full stack, so he will let him just do justice to the full stack bit of everything.
All right.
And you also tell me the one you are focused on. Maybe you're
Okay.
full stack, but you're tilting towards one side also.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is David Sampson. I will start with sharing my screen. Just let me know when you can see my screen. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So front end versus back end. Now, the first speaker, a colleague, she has done so well in trying to explain what front end and back end means. Before I had to create content for this webinar, I was asking myself, should I go high or should I go low? And I was thinking, what if I start off from the way I learned? Because I also learned this coding. So fortunately, I will start very low, very, very low. My name is David Sampson, a full stack engineer. By full stack, I mean I build both websites, I build mobile app, I build back end, and all. So that's what makes me a full stack engineer. And to summarize, then it could be that I can start the app from beginning and finish it, deploy it, and people start using it. I've done that so many times, and that's why I can call myself a full stack engineer. So front end versus back end. Why does this topic matters? Why do we need to talk about front end and back end? Now, the reason is many people are confused where to start from. Because when I started mine, I was also confused. Why? It is so broad. There's a lot to learn. There's so many things to know. And you see what the first speaker, she had to list a lot of programming languages that are being used for front end alone. And also the same thing applies for back end. It is too broad. So most times it's very important that we have a webinar to tell people about front end and about back end, and also try to advise, which, or maybe not advise you, but put out all the cards so that you can choose your direction. And another reason why this is important is because somebody was saying something and said, if you put together all the youngest people in Nigeria that are earning up to ₦1 million, you'll find them in tech, oil and gas, and I think there's another one he mentioned, meaning that if you want to earn high and faster, these are the industries you want to go into. So why should we talk about front end? Because people need to learn how to survive in Nigeria. And this is the context of Nigeria. Another reason why you need to talk about this is that when you choose the right path early, you grow faster. Now, people tell you tech money is not quick money. So it means that the earlier you start, the faster you grow. So in Nigeria, there's no power, data is expensive, you don't have time, there are so many distractions. So you don't have that luxury of time to start testing the waters. You want to test this one, test the other one before you make a decision or choose a direction, which is why it's very good to join webinars like this. So what is front end? Now, the first speaker has talked about front end a lot, and the front end is the visible part of any application or any website. Whether it's a website, it's a mobile application, that part that you can see, that part you can interact with, that's what we call the front end. The buttons, the form, dashboard, animations, layout, things that are jumping up and down, everything you can see is what we call the front end. And there are different technologies to use, and the technologies I use are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Next.js, and React Native. And these are for different applications. If I want to build a website, I'll be using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and maybe React as a framework, or Next.js as a senior brother. And if I want to build a mobile app, I'll move to React Native. These are just for front end. Now, front end in real life. Think of front end as a lot of persons use bank app. Everything you see on that app, the app you downloaded from Play Store, everything you see there is the front end. Or maybe an e-commerce website, Jumia, Konga, everything you are seeing on that site is what we refer to as the front end. Whatever you click on, if it's working, is the front end. And a lot of people make this mistake that when they see something, maybe they click on a button, it doesn't work, they blame the whole application. They say this application is not working. But that's not the case, because the backend engineer is somewhere busting himself, killing himself to make sure it works. But the front end is not looking good to the user. But the user says the entire application is not working. So maybe after this webinar, you know how to channel your concern. If you're using an application and something is wrong on that application, you can tell maybe the front end is bad or maybe the back end is bad. But we Nigerians, we don't do that. The moment my app is not transferring, oh, the app is bad. Even if it has a good front end, the whole thing is bad. Or maybe you're looking for a button, you don't find it, oh, the app is bad. You don't even know whether it's the front end or maybe the back end is bad. Okay. Now, the next thing is the back end. Now, she has also done very well to talk about the back end. The back end, this is the brain behind the application. Every single thing that is working behind the scene is what we call the back end, what you cannot see. Now, some applications, except for now that UI designs have improved and people start using skeletal loaders. But when you see something in a loading state, what is a loading state? Loading state simply means the app is either spinning, something is spinning, or something is jumping up and down, or moving left and right, but you are waiting. When you are waiting on the application to do something, then the brain is working. I know most persons or most humans, if you ask them a question and they don't have the answer immediately, they start doing or they start counting ceilings or they start moving fingers. That means the brain is working. That mode, you are just waiting. The person who asks you the question is waiting. So that's what happens in softwares also. So the brain behind the application, when you know it is working, is when you see the application either pausing or loading or just showing one funny design that is asking you to wait, then it means that the back end is working. So if that particular process fails, it means that the back end is not working. So you, as a beginner or maybe as a newbie, you'll be able to differentiate this challenge I'm having. Is it coming from the front end or is it coming from the back end? So that way you would know how to channel complaints. And also, as if somebody who wants to choose a part in tech, you can decide, okay, I want the part where I see what I am working. As I'm building, as I'm designing, I am seeing it. So I can actually judge myself if I'm growing very well. Or maybe I want to be the type that I want my brains to perform logics. So with that, you can decide, am I good in this area or am I good in that area? So backend handles a lot in application. Now, before now, a lot of persons believe that the backend is the entire application because it does not just the data storage, it does the authentication. And what we mean by authentication is the user being able to log in, the user being able to register, the user being able to recover their password and reset their password, all that flow, and also gaining access into the application. The entire flow is what we call authentication. And then the business logic is when you gain access into this application, the application should be able to do something for you. For example, I want to make a transfer. What's the point when I log into your application and I can't make transfers? So that's the business logic. And for me, when I want to build backend, I use Node.js, or I could also use Nest.js. And my database, I use MongoDB. Now, I prefer MongoDB, but I have used a lot of databases, different, and which I don't want to mention all. And I use Node.js or Nest.js to build my APIs. So this is just specifically for me. Backend in real life, like I said, if you log into an application and you try to make a transaction, you notice that the application will ask you to wait. It is processing. While it's processing, that is the back end working. Something is going on, but you can't see what is going on. That is the back end. And also the same thing applies for login. I remember there was a time a popular bank app was not, people were not able to log in into the app. Now, Anytime you discover that this has gone beyond me, I'm not seeing what is happening, that is the back end of that application working. And the back end of that application is not built inside your phone. You did not download it while you were downloading the app from Play Store. What you downloaded was the front end. What is installed on your phone is the front end. The back end is in a different directory. The back end is deployed in a different place. What happens is that your front end will be communicating with the back end. Now, until the back end finishes what it wants to do, the app that you have on your phone will not proceed, will not move forward. And some of them are non-blocking, which means you can do other things while you are waiting. But for some, you will have to wait for that process to complete. So when you try to send money and it says it's processing, that is the back end working. So how does the front end and the back end work together, which is one thing I have already explained. The what you downloaded on your phone or what you are viewing on your browser is only the front end. You are not seeing the back end. The back end is not there, is not there, but that backend will be sending a message or what we call request to wherever the backend is. The backend is not together with the front end. So it will be sending a message to where the backend is. The backend will be responding to the front end, and the front end will be showing you what the backend is doing. Now, if the backend is asking you for extra step, asking you for extra authorization, asking for extra stuff, the front end will be showing that result to you. So, but once you log in, what you're doing on the app is just you interacting with the front end alone, while the back end is sitting somewhere else. So, what is full stack? I'm a full stack engineer. That means that you can combine, if you combine the front end and the back end together, that makes me a full stack, meaning I build the part you see. I also build the part that you don't see. So it means that I make you comfortable, you see all of that. And then on the other side, I do things that handle logic. I like to I like to explain this using a restaurant. For example, if you're looking at a software works more like a restaurant. Say you walk into any of these hotels, maybe Helena Hotels or any of them, and you go there and sit down. At the moment you sit down, you need to call one of the waitress to come and attend to you. When they ask you or you ask them, I want this, I want that, I want the other one, and then they go somewhere, get what you asked for, and brings it to you. Now, it is either for you to say, okay, I'm satisfied with this, or I'm not satisfied with this. I want to proceed with more offer orders and get me all of that. So you coming to the hotel to sit down is more like you coming to the front end. Now, a lot of person will not sit down in a hotel if it is not tidy, if it is not arranged well, if it is not beautiful, they will not sit down there. That's the same thing that happens with most front end. When people look at the website, look at the app, if it's not catchy enough, they leave it, they abandon it. So if you're going to be a front-end developer, you know that you are the first point call for the users. So if the users are going to stay, it's based on what you design or what you build. If the users will leave immediately, it's based on what you build. So, and the next thing is once you are comfortable or when you are seated comfortably, you send for the waitress. The waitress that you are sending for is more like you asking the API, application programming interface. You are asking the API that this is what I want. So this is what I need. Get this for me, get that for me. And the API will go to the back end, which is the part where you are not seeing because you are seated somewhere else. You are not seeing what is going on there, but the waitress, which is now the API, will go to that side, pick what you want, and come back with it. So as you come back with it, they will drop it on your table. That's more like the front end displaying to you what the back end has brought. And if you are okay with it, you proceed. But if you are not okay with it, you change your order. I want to change. The API will still go again and change. So that back and forth communication is what makes the entire full stack. And to be a full stack developer, you means you need to know how to entertain the developer of the users while they are waiting. You also know how to work behind the scene to give the users exactly what they ask for. So the kind of stack I use, which I mostly recommend for beginners, is MongoDB, Express, React, Node.js, would build a perfect full stack. But it's not as if there are no other stacks. There are a lot of them that you can look out for, but these are quite easier to start with. So being a full stack, it means that you don't just build something small, you build a complete solution, a complete thing. And I know a first speaker has done this comparison, what the front end and what the back end is, but I think my explanation has done justice to this. So which one should you choose if you want to be a developer right now or currently in Nigeria? Now, like I said, a lot of people will not sit down in a hotel, let alone placing an order, if it is not designed well, if it's not catchy. So if you want to be a front-end developer, be rest assured that the company's business. Now, before it gets to the back end, because you are not going to start ordering for rice and stew while you are sitting at the junction. No, you have to go there and sit down first before you order. So it means that before the user starts interacting with the back end, they've already interacted with the front end and they have decided that they want to stay. So if you want to be a front-end developer, you need to like visuals, not just like visuals. You need to know how to make people like visuals. You need to make them enjoy what they are seeing. Like you need to make them talk about what they have seen. That is then you say, okay, I will go for front-end developer. But if you choose a backend, if you don't really care how they got the user, some people who who work in a company, they don't interact with the user, they don't work in customer care and all of that. All they know is that somebody made the request. What do the person want? The person wants rice. Let me start boiling the rice. What the person want? The person wants Coke. Okay, let me put Coke in the fridge and bring for you. So you are not interested in who handles the user, what the user is thinking and all of that. You are just interested in what does the user want? What does this person want? What do they want? They want this, I give them that. So the logic, if you are really interested in the logic, if you're really interested in solving people's problem, what they want, and you don't want people to even know you exist, then that means you're a back-end engineer. So that's how you choose which side should I go to. And in Nigeria today, of course, a lot of persons experience power, the blackout, data is expensive, and it's very difficult to find people who will mentor you these days. So what do you start with? You start with something you can practice easily without needing too much support, too much power, too much data, too much resources. You start with something you can practice easily. And also, the most important thing is consistency. You need to keep doing it. Now, for example, the former speaker said she has been in development for 8 years. I've been coding since 2016. So I didn't just wake up and say, I want to start coding. No, you still need to be doing it. Now, people say, oh, it's out of fashion. You keep doing it. People say, oh, AI is going to take your job. You keep doing it. You are tired. You keep doing it. Money is not coming. You keep doing it. That's what it takes. You need to be consistent. Now, even though you want to learn other stuff, whatever you have learned, you keep doing it. That's consistency for you to survive in a Nigeria of today as a developer. So my journey, how I started is I didn't really move into tech to say I wanted to do tech. I didn't join a webinar like this where they start asking me or teaching me what front end or back end is. No, I was posted to the north in Gombe State, and I was, because I'm from Port Harcourt, I was posted to the capital city, and then they posted me to a very good school. The school has internet, has light, and all of that. And there are guys that are my friends that know these tech things. They want to learn tech, but they don't have access to that light that I have, the internet that I have. So what they did was to push me so that I will carry them into the lab and they start learning there. So in them learning forced me to learn because I can't leave them in the lab. The school is going to chase them away. They don't work there. They're not there. But because I work there, they will be allowed. So I had to stay there and learn. And it wasn't easy because, like I said, it wasn't as if I was enrolled into something like SmartHub where I would have mentors that would teach me. No, I had friends that are pursuing their own career. They just needed me to be there so that they have access to light. And I was learning on my own. I learned, I keep learning, even though I was failing, but I keep learning until one of them got an offer to go to Germany. That was when I knew that this is a personal race. It's not a combined thing. I'm not going to be doing it because my friend is doing it. I'm not doing it because somebody is pushing me. If you see the way I started my story that they pushed me. But when they got their jobs to move out, it was now personal. There's no two ways about it. You don't need to tell me. I started from the beginning on my own. Whether I eat, whether I don't eat, because I have seen the end goal. That's how I started. So why did I choose men's stack? I didn't even know which one to choose as at the time I was learning. I started with graphic designs. I did graphic design, moved to digital marketing, from digital marketing, jumped into front end. And I kept telling myself that I would learn men's stack. I didn't even know what men's stack was because I saw it. Somebody talked about men's stack and I said, I want to do men's stack until I learned that e-commerce platforms were built with React. Nobody needed to tell me. I wanted to build an e-commerce platform. I said, okay, to build an e-commerce platform, I will learn React to build it. So I think that's one thing about tech. Before you do anything, you need to set an objective for yourself. Why am I doing this? Why am I learning this? It shouldn't be, oh, I want to be perceived as a tech person. Oh, I want people to know I'm a front-end engineer, I'm a back-end engineer. At the end of the day, what should I be doing? What am I getting? What am I doing it? So I learned React because I want to be building e-commerce platforms. And these days, I'm not saying React is only used to build e-commerce platform, but it makes it easier to build an e-commerce platform. So that's why I moved to React and learned ManStack. And this ManStack simply means MongoDB as a database, Express as a server, React as the front end, and Node.js on the back end. Now, I faced a lot of challenges, a lot. One of them being I had no mentor, nobody to direct me. I just listened to people, short talks from here and there. And anyone that suits well with me, I pick that one. Anyone that doesn't sit well with me, I leave that one. So a lack of mentors. And I won't say I had power and internet as an issue because at that time I had power that I was not even using. I had data I was not using. But it was after then I started facing the challenge of power and data. And how did I surpass that? I took the bull by the horn. I just told myself there's no point learning and learning and learning and learning. Nothing is going to come out. I need to earn as fast as possible. So I took up a job, a real estate project that I don't even know how to build. Why? I wanted to have cash so that I can bypass power issues, data issues. So if I buy power and buy data, anything that I need to learn to build that real estate, I will build it because people who are building it don't have two heads. So I can't beat power and data if I don't have money. And I can't have money if I'm not building projects. So I had to take up a project, bought power, and I didn't just buy power. I bought my first laptop then, used the laptop And that was how I built that real estate platform. So it worked for me, but I don't know if these steps are going to work for you. But like I said, we're just looking at it in the Nigeria of today. Somebody, like I said, someone said, if you look at young persons that are doing well in Nigeria now, it is either they are in tech or they are in oil and gas, or maybe people who are doing content. But let's be honest with ourselves. How many persons are actually doing this content very well and making millions every time here and there? It's not as if they don't, but trust me, you can't compare it to people who are actually putting in their sweat into tech. So common mistakes you may make while you are trying to figure out how to jump into front end or back end is that you will try to learn everything at once. You say, okay, let me learn front end and back end together, because people tell you, if you're a full stack developer, you get jobs faster. So you try to learn everything at once, and you keep learning. You know, they say jack of all trades is a master of none. And when you are a master of none, nobody's going to put. And I need to be very, very, like I usually tell students these things, that somebody is not going to pay you to do a job for them where they don't trust your abilities, because companies are going to suffer losses. Companies are going to be sued. People will suffer if they hire a back-end developer that doesn't know what they are doing. Companies will run out of business if they hire a front-end developer that doesn't know what it's doing. So before you even start, the mindset that I want to be the best, because I think that was my goal at some point. I said I wanted to be the best JavaScript developer in Nigeria, and I kept pursuing it, and I'm still pursuing it. So nobody is going to call you and sit down and say, okay, try and do this for me. I'll be like, okay, I will try my best. Nobody wants to hear that you want to try your best. No, they want to see that level, that confidence in you, that you have this. That to build that confidence, you pick one thing. You pick one, kill it until it is dead completely. That if you sit down to talk about it or build it, you are good at it, instead of picking everything. Now, some people watch a lot of tutorials and then they don't build anything. At the end of the day, they are good at talking about it. You know, the moment you mention web development, software, markets, mention it outside, oh, people have heard it. A lot of persons have heard it. But if you bring the job and you give it to somebody, or those same persons who are talking about, a few of them can actually sit down and build start to finish. So what most persons do is, oh, they know somebody who can build it. They collect their own code and hand over the job to the next person. Oh, I know another person. Just like that, they collect their code. A friend of mine used to tell me this story, that the first time he collected the job from a law firm, the law firm offered him a job, and he went there and told them he's going to build the entire website for 350,000 naira. Not knowing, and they paid him on the spot, like they paid him the whole thing on the spot, not knowing that someone who was there was actually getting 850 to 1 million and 1.5 for the same job. So they paid him 350K to get that thing done. What he did was to go and look for another person that knows how to build it. So you have a lot of persons who have an idea of what this thing is because they watch tutorials, but they can't sit down to build it. So some people like us took the bull by the horn and built as freelancers. Now, you can get a job into a company, maybe a company will hire you, but most times the fastest ways to do this is to work as a freelancer. You're good at the front end, you start working, and of course, you learn all of this if you are already signed up with SmartHub. So if you're signed up with SmartHub, how to navigate all of these things will be, you will get to see them. Or maybe you keep joining these webinars, you learn how to, and I mean real life, how to navigate these things real life. And another mistake most people make is comparing themselves. Oh, Mr. David has built 300 and something websites. Are you sure I can beat that? Are you sure? Nobody cares. You build 300 and something, you build 1 million, that is your business. What I'm concerned is can I make this one work? If I make it work, I am a full stack engineer. That's all you need to know. So you don't compare yourself with somebody's years of experience, somebody's knowledge, and all of that. No, don't do that. And people give up too early, because you might just hear, oh, AI is going to take all the front-end developers' job. You see front-end developers giving up. Oh, AI is going to take up back-end developers' job. You see back-end developers give up. And I think we've actually addressed this AI thing in one of the webinars. And I know that the SmartHub is going to replay that video or get that resources to you. So that if you are somebody who has that fear of AI and maybe front-end and back-end, you know how to handle it. So start today, learn the fundamentals, build small projects, and share your work online. That's how to move. My final advice is consistency. Now, there are people who have talents. They can close their eyes and do magic. But the person who is consistent, who is doing one thing, something every single day, will beat that person. Yes, and that is the person that will get the job. Somebody who is consistent, that's the person that will, not somebody who can close his eye and make miracle happen. But if you are consistent, you will beat the person who has talent. Build stuffs. No matter what it is, oh, it's just a simple thing. Build it first. Build it first. And you don't wait for everything to be perfect. Oh, I need a laptop that is 8 gig RAM or 16 gig RAM. I need a laptop that the battery will last me 4 hours, 8 hours. When I was building my project, I had my laptop, and at some point my laptop was this break and quench. If they take light, my laptop off. So you don't wait for the perfect conditions before you actually start doing something. And like there's a quote I have here: you don't need to be Silicon Valley to do something or be an engineer or any of that. You just need Wi-Fi. If you have data and you have discipline, that's all you need. So thank you for coming to my pep talk.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. That's nice. You can drop your questions in the comment in the chat section. In the chat section. That's nice. That's nice. I think I think I think he did justice, just like the first speaker also did justice. I think it's like a bunch of justice now, a bunch of justices. So that is very. Thank you, Mr. David. Thank you, Mr. David. You could see he spoke from his own perspective, how he started his journey, what inspired him to start his own journey. And Mr. David, I don't know if you mentioned the field you are focused on more. Is it backend or frontend? Are you a frontend focused full stack engineer or a backend focused full stack engineer?
It was before that I would say that I'm a back-end focused engineer, but these days you get a PR, like a project document of what to build, and you'll be scared of building the backend for that project. You go to the front end. Or maybe you get another one, you'll be scared of building the front end of that project, you go to the back end. So it just depends on when I see a project and I just pick the easiest side.
Okay.
This project, this will be easier, I jump to that side.
Okay. So you can hear from him. He always picks the easier one, but he went to learn both of them to be on the safer side. Okay. You could hear I think I'll be fast with the questions because we are very, very past our time. The first one is okay, please tell us where you work. Mrs. Gloria, I don't know if you can hear me. This question is for you. You can as well just tell us the field, the industry where you work, because that's what Mr. Oluwafemi is asking you.
I work in the loan financing. I work with MCOPA. MCOPA is in charge of giving out this pay buy now, pay later, but pay small rather. So yeah, I work with them as I'm part of their payments team. and we have a market in like 5 African countries, I think. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. She's the backend engineer for a fintech company. So in case money is having problem, it's her. She's part of the team that they hold responsible. So the next question is yeah, I think Mr. David is like a perfect response reply to this. Is it possible for one person to be a backend and front engineer? Yeah, that is a full stack, and Mr. David is one. So it is possible, but you don't need to wait till you, just like Mr. David said, you don't need to wait till you know both before you start getting jobs. You don't need to wait. The best way to learn is by taking on projects. That's the best way. So if it's front end, you know first, do as much as possible, take on projects to solidify your stack as a front engineer before moving to back end. So this third one, what are your recommendations for developing a web application with Superbase rather than a self-managed database? Considering that many AI-generated applications now use this type of backend, I think this is like a modern day kind of question. Who wants to answer that, Mrs. Gloria or Mr. David?
Um, I would say that it depends on your use case. And one important thing, if you are building like a personal project or something, is not to reinvent the wheel, right? Although I know that these self-managed services are usually more cheaper than depending on third parties, especially if it's like paid services. But also you should consider if you're not skilled enough to consider your self-managed database, have you considered like the security risks involved and the rest? So actually there's no right or wrong answer. It just depends on your use case. Any part you are going, do it well and be very knowledgeable about it. Most big organizations say, like the ones that serve millions of users that are using like cloud and serverless, they don't self-manage. They usually pay third parties, but it has like a financial cost to it. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yes. I believe, Mr. Edison, I believe that answered your question. Yes. For me, yeah. That is actually a good question because for sure I'll be hearing about Superbase and how I think it's very, very friendly with AI, developing database under the mix of AI into a secure application. How safe it will be. So the next question is, how can I move from zero to hero in REST API? Mrs. Gloria, I think this is better for you as a backend specialist.
Practice. I think David said same thing. Practice. Consistency. When you keep doing it over and over again, trust me, nobody knows it all. There are times where I have still browse for the simplest syntax that I am expected to do, even with the years of writing it. So just consistent practice and doing it consistently, then it will come at back of your hands. There's no shortcut to it.
Okay. Thank you. And last question for you, Mr. and Mrs. Gloria. Sorry. Mr. David shared very well his learning journey from the point of his interest that sparked his interest till now. I believe this person is saying you should also do your learning journey. More like I think you did mention something like that, whereby you mentioned how you started with HTML, CSS. But if you can maybe did you start with .NET when you were going to your backend at first, or you chose another one, then for some reason net took over your heart or what? So I'll just
Uh, well, my learning curve is like the typical Nigerian student that is just looking for anything to take them out of poverty, right? That was funny enough, it wasn't web development that brought my interest to programming. It was actually Android applications. So I started building Android applications. Then we were using Eclipse. Android Studio was novel and there was no Kotlin there. So it was Java as back end and XML as the front end. That was what I was doing. And yeah, just because HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are like prerequisites, it's just something that you should just know. I I okay. I remember I had an issue with laptop. I didn't have a laptop, so I can't develop web applications with my phone. And then there was this Android application that came out that you could use to write HTML script. And I didn't want my interest to die down. So I started learning HTML, CSS so that I could be practicing with my phone basically. And I was doing that. I was really interested in going into the Android line of things. But during my year four, I studied in Uniports, by the way, and I studied mechanical engineering. So during the IT, I got into a tech company, kind of, and they were using C Sharp and building like desktop applications. And that was how I transitioned from Android to C Sharp. And I just remained there because I just fell in love with it, liked the ecosystem, and it aligned better with me. So I that's how I found myself in C Sharp, and I continued with it and became my career path. But Android was actually my first love.
okay. Thank you. I believe that's okay. One more question. One more question. How do you handle a project handed over to you in a new workspace as a developer? I think this is very, especially if it's an existing code base. That time taken for you to understand the code base before you continue your work. So how do
Mm,
you handle?
Well, I will say it comes with experience, to be honest. So out of the experience I already have, when I jump into a new project, I already know where to look out. For example, if the project has tests in it, like unit test or service test or integration test, I look at the tests because the test gives you like an idea of what this project is doing, what the project is all about. That is like my starting point. I try to run the test and based on the test, I try to understand what is going on. But well, for me, based on like it's like something I've been doing, so it's not always difficult. Like, for example, in my team, we handle because we are dealing with, I don't know if we know about it, but we are working on a microservice architecture and we have over 15 services that we are managing just in my team, right? So you could jump into any project at any time, you could change context at any time. And the fact that I've been doing it over these years is just something that comes back. And once you know how to read the code already, and once I just look at the code base, I just have an idea of what it is doing. And that's why it's very important to like have descriptive names or your classes, your methods, and the rest, because it helps the next person that is going to jump into that code base to have an idea. So if you go into a good code base that have like good naming convention, their classes there named what they are meant to do, and you will not find like x equals to 1 or x equals to all those kind of naming conventions is not there. It's very easy to understand any code base that you jump into. It's only confusing when the code pattern is really spaghetti codes, right? Yeah, that's basically it. It comes with experience and good coding standards.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect. I think we have come to the end of the QA session. But if any of you still have some questions, you could ask them You can ask them now. You can ask them now. So that's all. I will start with the closing remark. As you all know, this webinar is hosted by SmartHub Academy, a tech. Okay, please talk to us about SmartHub. Yes. So SmartHub is a tech training institute that teaches tech enthusiasts about in-demand tech skills, whether is web development, just like the one being spoken about now, both front-end and back-end, whether is web development, whether is cyber security, whether is data science, data analysis, cloud engineering. We take care of that. We take care of that. We have both, we work with corporate institutions, students, college students, even students that are not um, students that have passed their college, postgraduate students. We work with all of them. We enlighten them. We teach them about tech. We have expert tutors. We have expert tutors with many years of experience and many projects in their catalog. So that's we have an upcoming bootcamp coming up soon. Bootcamp, it covers all the tech courses I just mentioned here, and also one for internship, serious internship. Those that are in school that are doing their IT period, those normal serious training provided by school to allow students to learn, to go and learn the practical aspect of what they have been teaching them so far. So we accept students with a huge discount based on the fact that they are students. So that's what we do. And you could visit us in Abuja campus inside Uniport. For those people that are familiar with Uniport, just tell them Abuja campus. Once you enter the shuttle, just tell them Abuja campus, and you can call our line from there, and we will come and just, it's close to there. There's no, you don't need to walk any much further from there. So I'll drop the website link just like what Mr. Olufemi is asking of. I'll drop the website link for people that wants to know more. There's also a new course on AI engineering. This is based on the demand so far. Okay, based on this recent AI trends, there has been a job spec that has been put into play. AI engineering is part of them. So yeah, that is also available. The class is also coming up soon alongside the other tech courses I've mentioned. So for those that are interested, I dropped a link to our website. You can go there and also indicate your interest here. There are forms you can fill, which will be redirected to our customer care line, which will contact you for further discussion. So I believe that is all for now. This meeting is very much recorded. So if you want to re-listen to this amazing speech by both experts, you could. We will send it. We will send it to you tomorrow for a re-listen. I really appreciate you all for participating. I look forward. I'll also share the link. Sorry. I'll also share the link to the WhatsApp community so you can stay updated in any of our activities so far, because this webinar is a this webinar is something that will be recurring. So it's a recurring stuff. So it's not something that, oh, this is one off. Like I've said, it is a series at the end of every month. Sometimes it's on Saturdays, sometimes it's on Sunday, the last week of the month. We cover up, and it's mainly about tech. So we cover tech topics, and we have experts Sometimes it's sometimes it's from one of our tutors, sometimes it's from, we mix them, guests, sometimes it's from a tutor. So we could help beginners or enthusiasts wanting to know about tech to have that free insights. So that is all for now. I'll share the link of the community. I'll share the link in the community here before we leave the community. Sorry, I'm sharing it now. I'm sharing it now. Okay. So I'll share the link to our WhatsApp community. You can join from there and you can ask any question. You can also be here so you can keep up with any activities from SmartHub that's coming up. Thank you for participating, and I wish you guys the best. You can start living from more. You can drop a reaction before you leave, please. Drop some reactions before you leave. Yes, thank you. This is the time.